Welcome to the Alltech Radio Podcast. This is the show where you learn about news and technology related to working in the world of IT. No matter what your job is in IT, we cover all aspects of work-life balance, job duties, salary, and everything else related to computers and technology. I'm your host, Professor Robert McMillan. Joining me is my co-host, IT consultant Scott Portinga. And Scott, how's it going?
It's not going too bad. It's been really busy. It's getting into the school year. I have a client that's a charter school, so we got a lot of stuff we're doing there. Maybe a couple new cameras. Usually, right before the school season starts, you gotta get in, take a look at their equipment, make sure if we need to upgrade anything.
Now what's the difference between charter and a regular school? Because there's so many. Is it better teachers? Is it cost money? What's the deal?
I really couldn't tell you exactly what the problem is. I know that there's a little bit more flexibility. I mean, they have the same criteria for schooling, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think in the manner of delivery, it's a little bit easier for some students. It's not quite as rigid.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, I think for a lot of kids, it's probably a good option.
Some of my son's, friends were in charter school, and all I heard from them was there's a lot more homework.
It made them work harder. Oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess it's a privilege to get more homework,
Exactly.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you are as excited as the rest of the world. No, 65% of the rest of the world who are running Windows client operating systems as their main OS. But Microsoft Copilot comes out this week.
Oh, do tell. What is it? I don't know if I want a Copilot.
Well, this is an article from ZDNet. Unfortunately, they spelled it, what is Microsoft Copilot? But that's okay. I knew what they meant. I knew what they meant. They just, maybe they fired their, their checker. I don't know, the person who checks these things, their editor.
Exactly.
So Copilot is Microsoft's artificial intelligence companion. And it's going to go into multiple different places. So it's a little bit confusing because Microsoft says, "Hey, this is artificial intelligence for the Windows operating system." That's only part of the whole story. So what it is yes, it's for the operating system, but it's also for individual applications. So if you had it for the OS, you could do certain things with the OS, but not with the applications themselves. Yeah. So therefore, based on how many different things you put it on, it could either be free or it could cost money. Yeah, they did not make this easy at all.
So are they going to start charging money for anything more than one device?
No, it's more about what applications you put it on, but also that too, So it's going to be also in Microsoft 365 products like, in Office, Word, Excel, Outlook, all those different things. It's going to be inside web browsing like Edge and Bing. I don't know if anybody uses Bing, but I always thought Bing was just a search engine. I didn't realize it was also a web browser as well. But
is it? Edge is the browser, Bing is the search engine, and now they got Bing AI that tries to tell you more than you ever wanted to know.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe this ZDNet Copilot site is off on that.
They probably had it edited by AI.
yeah, you're probably right. So you'll be able to get AI assistance in all different aspects of workflow. So workflow is basically you just, you open up Word and maybe you click a link and it goes to a web browser. That's workflow. Yeah. So yeah, all the different Microsoft 365 and Office 365 applications. The difference between Microsoft 365 and Office is, Microsoft is going to be that you pay a rental fee, whereas if you just buy Office, you just buy it once. But it does have an eventual end of life to it if you do it that way. And Microsoft 365 does not. Well, it eventually when the world ends, but other than that, it'll just keep going. Teams as well. It'll work on Teams and SharePoint and all those different things. Copilot can be in all that different stuff. You can generate text and tables in Word, summarize and draft emails in Outlook. Can you imagine, saying, "Hey, create an email for Scott to tell him that he did a great job this week." And it just does it. And you click send and you're done. So. And then you wake up, you have your AI read it, and your AI says, "Hey, you should be happy today."
Okay.
Yay. So it's rolling out on Windows 11 starting this week, actually starting today,
Uh-huh.
through a free Windows 11 update. So if your computer restarts, it's because of Copilot.
Ah,
And then it's going to be rolling out Copilot for Bing and Edge within the next few weeks. There's also a Copilot for enterprise customers. I'm not sure what the difference is right now, but maybe it just includes all the different apps all at once. I don't know.
it could be. Well, there's some apps for enterprise and apps for business.
Right.
So, and there's enterprise versions of Windows 10 and 11.
Oh
So
yeah, you're right
maybe
about
that's
that too. Yeah, I don't see when it's coming out for Windows 10 or if it's coming out for Windows 10. I mean, that might be a reason why they want trying to
Yep.
get people to upgrade. Although Windows 10 is still like 70% of the market right now of
Oh
all the
yeah.
Windows operating system because
Well,
most
I
computers
tell
don't
clients.
you can't get on there.
Yeah, well, I tell clients all the time, it's, until your main line of business applications support Windows 11, we're not doing anything.
Yeah, why would you bother?
Yeah.
It doesn't give you anything more. It's just a
And,
different user interface.
yeah, and there's been a couple that have come out and said, well, yeah, we can support it, but so it's like, no, we're not doing it.
um, so Microsoft 365 Copilot will be available for enterprise customers at $30 per month.
Oh,
Whoa.
that's only $1 a day, Bob.
That's one way to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah. Think of what you pay for coffee, Robert. You can
That's
save
true.
so much money.
I don't drink coffee, actually. I do drink a lot of Diet Coke, which is, the doctor says is not a good idea. But, yeah.
Oh, they had some testing come out and showing that all those testing that show it causes cancer.
Yeah.
Those are all based on quantities that were just inhuman, never happen. So they
Oh,
come
yeah.
back and said, after we looked at the reports again, no, it really doesn't cause
You'll be
cancer.
fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. With that Coke.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. I feel better about myself. Thank you. That's as good
You're
as,
welcome.
as an email saying I did a great job today. Um, okay. So the lower end plans for business subscriptions. Again, this is Microsoft 365. So if you don't have that, then that's not in here. $12 to $23 per user per month. That's like doubling the amount of profit, or more than doubling for Microsoft. That's amazing.
They're pumping in a little bit of code and doubling the price of your office subscription.
Yeah, I guess they want something for their $10 billion investment that they put into this whole thing.
Oh,
Yes. So here's what it is. It's so let's see. It's a chat with. Well, here's part of it. One thing is called Microsoft 365 Chat. So it's part of Copilot, and it's an interface that has access to your data across different Microsoft Work applications. Okay, do we really want AI to
that
have
sounds like a
access
good
to our data? I'm already seeing people on various websites going, "How do I make sure this is disabled?" And
Yeah, exactly.
Never gets.
I
on
didn't
our
ask for
computers.
this. They bake it into an update and I get it regardless. That's
Yeah, well, that's pretty standard
I can
operating
get,
procedure.
I can get you a copy of Windows 7. Just stick with Windows 7.
There you go. There you go. So, as an example, you can ask Microsoft 365 Chat, which is the Copilot AI, to summarize unread messages, and it will look through all your 365 applications to give you a summary of everything that you missed. It can catch you up on meetings, find documents. So I guess you have to have a microphone, which all laptops have, but not everybody has one. Meetings, chats, and more. So let's see here. Google unveiled its version, called Duet AI. So this is different than their Bard, AI, which is built into the website. This is more of like, something you would install on your computer. So Duet AI is an assistant that's going to integrate across the Google Workspace. Okay, so instead of Microsoft 365, this is, their version of it. It includes Google Docs, Slides, Meet, Gmail, Chat, and more. Not been released into public yet, and we don't have any kind of a price yet on Google Copilot. But it looks like it's coming out. Both of them coming out soon. Well, obviously, the Windows one is coming out this week, but it's not going to come out to everybody all at once. It's a kind of a big update, and they don't want completely use up all their bandwidth just to push this thing out. So,
Yep.
but Tuesday, it is Patch Tuesday, so a lot of people will be getting it, tonight,
Like it or not.
like it or not, it's coming soon. So I don't know if you heard about this, but the guy who pretty much designed all the Microsoft Surface products, and I'm talking, the laptops, the phones, all these different things.
The tablets.
Panos Panay, if I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I think I am. He left. He went off to Google.
Oh.
Yeah, he didn't just leave.
Well,
He went to the enemy.
well, that means we could have some decent tablets and such, because those Surface tablets are really nice. I got a client that loves them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's leaving Microsoft to go to Google. So you're saying that you want to use a Google tablet?
Not necessarily, but the quality of the Google tablets will
get
definitely
better.
come up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I guess if you get a tablet nowadays, I mean, like the cheap ones, the $100 to $300, it's going to be Android. If you're going to get the $500, then it's probably going to be Windows or iPad, iOS.
Yeah.
That could be interesting to add that in. So he exited effective immediately last week. And
someone pissed him off.
Yeah, I think somebody just offered him more money.
Yep.
So he's been there since 2004 and was central to the company's hardware efforts in his role leading the Surface Computer division. This is from the gulfnews.com. I still have the original tablet, the Surface tablet, the one that came out was $500 10 years ago, maybe 11 years now. And it's actually starting to go back up in value. So I'm definitely hanging on to it. But, I was really impressed because there really was no good, and Apple included, there was no good tablet you could take with you on an airplane or just, be really mobile, where it had the built-in keyboard. It had a user interface that you were used to, had applications that you could install, on there. They had two different ones. They had the ARM version, which you had to use Microsoft Store, which was terrible because there weren't very many applications. Or you could install regular applications on it. And that's the good one. It's the one that I like. And, you can do that. But still, I think they're pretty overpriced. Have you ever gotten one?
I have not. I was, my daughter actually dug this up. I had given it to her. A Windows XP compact tablet.
Okay.
That sat in this docking station. You had a keyboard and everything, so it was running full Windows XP.
Okay.
And it was also touchscreen, and it was kind of nice. In its day, it was a great little device.
I bet it was about an inch thick, though, right?
No, it was about just over half an inch, I think.
Just half it? Oh, all right. That's not
it wasn't bad.
That's not bad. I bet that cost a pretty good amount.
I don't know. I got it from a vendor. Don't care.
Oh, okay. It was like a freebie. Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Did you get your new iPhone yet?
I have not. I've been going back and forth on that.
Yeah.
14s and 15s, they have no more SIM card. It's electronic SIM.
Wow.
Which means if your phone breaks, right now I've got older phones. If I had to, I could take my card, put it in another phone, and I'm working while the other one gets fixed.
Right.
What am I going to do if the phone breaks? I can't call them. The phone broke.
That's a good question. Well, have you looked up what do you do?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
But then on the other hand, has my phone ever broken that badly? No, it hasn't.
Well, but you could get it lost or stolen though too. And
exactly.
Yeah. Boy, I wonder what their thinking was on that. Obviously, it's a money grab. I mean, why else would they do it?
Oh yeah. It's the only reason they do stuff is for money. But now the thing that really has me thinking about the 15 is the 48 megapixel camera. It's like I look at what I have right now, and it's like a 12 megapixel,
which is good.
It's great. I don't know if I could tell the difference. Do I really need to zoom in that far on a picture?
Yeah.
48 megapixels? Not really. Plus, all those pictures are going to take up a lot of space.
You remember when Nokia was doing just Windows phones years ago? Mm-hmm. And I got one that, the Nokia phones were pretty thin at the time. I mean, they're probably thick compared to today, but we're talking, 10 years ago or so. And I got one that had the best camera on it. And again, this is 10 years ago. That. 40 megapixels 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you compared it to like anything that was moving quickly, yeah, there was a huge difference between a 40 megapixel camera, and plus if you blew it up, it was much better too.
Yeah, I think they put in Zeiss lenses.
Oh,
It was
that's right.
it was
Yeah.
a nice camera. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, but I went to an Applebee's one night, and the waitress unfortunately dropped some plates on it and broke it.
I remember that too.
They paid me back for it, but by the time they paid me back, you could no longer get the thing.
Right.
It was on its way out. But I do miss that camera. That was so I could definitely see you wanting it for the camera reason. And again, it's not just the quality of the camera; it's the quality of the camera with moving objects.
Right.
So you're at a birthday party, for your grandchildren, and you're blowing out the candles. It just looks better on a 48 megapixel.
It
I'll
does.
just tell you that,
You
yeah.
get better stop action and better pictures.
Yeah, overall. So I could definitely see you doing that. But yeah, that electronic SIM thing, that is distressing.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, I don't know if my fears are completely unfounded. I need to do some more research on it. And has my phone ever gotten broken such that I would have to
Yeah.
put my card into another phone? No. But I always like the idea of being able to do that if I needed to.
Well, what I like doing sometimes, and I haven't done it recently, is taking the SIM card out and putting it into a smaller phone if I'm going to travel, where I don't have the big pockets or whatever. And then if I'm going to be, doing a lot of reading or something like that, then I'll want the bigger phone, make it a little bit easier to see, and then I'll want to switch it back, and that completely takes that out. You're not going to be doing.
Yeah, I know that's the thing I'm going back and forth on.
Yeah, well, let me know what you decide. That is an interesting problem. I hear the 12s. I read something last week that they put out a ton of radiation. Yeah, I think they fixed it with a Windows or with an Apple update, but I'm not 100% sure that that's true. But yeah, there were some companies that were saying you cannot bring that phone into our business anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So but actually, I think they might have fixed it, but it's something we should look into a little bit more, because your version's a lot older than that, right?
7.
You have the cowboy phone, as my kids call it.
Yeah, it's a 7. It still does fine, but yeah, the 12 or the 13 may be a good option if I want to have a SIM card. If I can move past that, then maybe the 15. We'll see.
All right. Well, maybe some listeners can go ahead and leave comments to say whether or not they thought it was a good idea to go up to the latest one.
I did have a client that just got his 15. I think it was on Sunday, and he calls me or texts me and needed his password changed for Microsoft because he didn't remember what it was. So.
Yeah. So you had to go and reset it.
Well, I need to give him a couple weeks and then find out what he thinks about it.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Speaking of too much radiation, Microsoft, believe it or not, I did not plan this segue.
What a segue.
Microsoft is looking at nuclear technology to power its artificial intelligence data centers.
I thought they were going to put a small reactor inside the laptops or something.
Yeah.
Never charge it again.
You imagine, data centers use a tremendous amount of electricity, and nuclear power, of course, is a very efficient way of doing things. But all it takes is a storm, an earthquake, a flood, or well, look what happened in Japan, Fukushima.
Oh yeah.
Boy, there's a reason why we've removed more nuclear, technology than added, and it's not that safe.
I don't know where they're at with it, but Oregon State was doing they were experimenting and developing this self-contained nuclear reactor.
Wow.
It's like, put it on a semi-truck, probably plug in water for cooling.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was just a self-contained unit.
Wow. That sounds interesting. And I totally understand that we still need it, and we should probably add more of them. It's just, why can't they make it safer? That's the thing. All it takes is one. I mean, look what's happening in Ukraine. It's possible that literally 60 million people could die if they have a core meltdown in that Zaporizhzhia, if I'm saying it right.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, 60 million people. and they
Russia's
won't
been
all be
using that as a
Russians.
chess piece in the war.
Yeah, exactly. They won't all be Russians that die. I mean, it's going to be a big chunk of Europe too,
Yeah.
or Ukrainians even. It's going to be a big chunk of Europe. It depends on which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, well, that's why Putin can use that, is he can use it to threaten the rest of the world if
Yeah.
he doesn't get his way.
Well, all we have to do is put a giant fan in and just blow it towards Russia.
There you go. I'm sure they're working on that. Sounds like a good DARPA project.
So like I said, I understand that we're not going to be able to move away from coal and oil without going to nuclear. I totally understand that because, fusion is not, we're not ready yet.
Yeah.
Fusion, which is the cleaner version of making power, fusing atoms together instead of ripping them apart. You don't have the radioactivity that you have with fission. So, but we're still a long ways away from that, even though they keep making new breakthroughs. Well, they make breakthroughs in cancer every day. I've been hearing this for 20, 30 years.
Oh,
People still
yeah.
die of cancer all the time,
Mhm.
So, these breakthroughs don't really mean anything until, somebody starts putting them into production.
Yep. Until we can actually get it ourselves. The reports are great, the articles are great, but it doesn't really change anything.
Yeah. So how do you feel about nuclear powered data centers?
Uh,
Not a big fan.
not a big fan. Well, there's some areas that are very stable. You
Uh,
might be able to put them, but with some of the earthquakes in areas that we didn't expect them, I mean, areas are stable until they're not. So,
Oklahoma. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah. It would be interesting to put them in the desert because you've got all that sunlight, right?
Mhm.
So that's that would be one good thing to have, along with the nuclear, option. But you have both, and when one isn't enough, then you add in the other, kind of a thing. And then if you did have a complete meltdown, maybe if you did it all underground, then maybe there wouldn't be a big problem. I don't
Well,
know.
there are some data centers being built around geothermal energy.
Really? I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting. That's a great idea.
it is, and they can use that for for the power. They're not having to use nuclear.
Yeah.
So
Some of my students, they ask me, why do we need heat? Well, you need something to boil the water to spin the turbine. I mean, you could have
exactly.
water go through like it does in the Grand Canyon and just, the water being pushed out through gravity. That works great. But, there's not a lot of Grand Canyons around.
Yeah. Well, the Columbia,
Yeah.
the Colorado. There's been some rivers that can handle it, but yeah, most rivers just don't really do much.
Yeah, you've got to have something that spins the turbines. The turbines create the electricity, and we've just found the best way to do that is to boil water.
Yeah.
So,
It's like ultimately, except for solar, turbines generate electricity, whether you
Yeah.
boil water with nuclear or with coal or with gas or turn it with a windmill.
Yeah.
It's all generated by turbines.
they've even had some solar in the desert, which is really interesting, where they have solar panels, and instead of producing electricity, they all reflect. Actually, it's more like mirrors than they are solar panels. They all reflect back at this one point, which is water, and it
Mhm.
boils the water. So the sun, reflects off the mirrors, and then they boil the water, and then the water spins the turbines. Uses a huge amount of space, but it's in the
Oh, yeah.
desert. I think it's somewhere in the Middle East. So it's they have lots of space that's not being occupied.
What was that movie, Sahara,
Yeah, yeah,
that showed one of those installations?
yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that. Maybe that's worth another watch. Right?
It's a fun movie.
Yeah. So Apple. So okay. So Google's on trial right now. They are on trial I don't think a lot of people realize this, but Google's on trial in a very similar way that Microsoft was on trial in the 90s. So in the mid 90s, the Clinton administration wanted to break up Microsoft because it was a monopoly. And I agree. Back then it was a monopoly, probably should have been broken up. I'm glad they didn't, and it scared me to death that they wouldn't, because I'd already invested, my time into learning, Microsoft products. So I was really glad when they didn't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. What would that have done for, folks like us that are so centered on Microsoft?
exactly, yeah. But Google is now going through a similar trial for being the dominant search engine. And it's not that they're just the dominant search engine, but they're doing sneaky tactics, allegedly, in order to keep other search engines from being any better. So
There's that, and sometimes the stuff you do a search,
yeah.
and the first things listed there have nothing to do with what you searched for.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And of course, you get a lot of ads now too. But what's interesting is that if that wasn't interesting enough, is Apple's vice president, his name is Eddie Q, is testifying, saying that the reason they chose Google's search engine for all of their iPhone and iOS types of devices is because it's just the best one out there. Which I thought that was. I mean, it really is. It is the best one out there. There's no doubt about that. But it's interesting. I think that the Department of Justice has requested someone from Apple to come in to say, okay, why is it that this happened? Was it because they strong-armed you, or what other reason? So Google pays Apple billions of dollars to be the default search engine in the iPhone's browser, according to CNBC.com, and other settings. Google pays as much as $19 billion just in 1 year. Oh no, just so far this year. That's a huge amount of money just to be so Google's making at least 50 to 100 billion off of that. So Q negotiated the deal with Google. I'd be looking at his bank account, see if there's any special payments from Google.
All the bank accounts.
Yeah, the offshore ones too.
Yep.
See what he's got going. So Apple has revenue sharing agreements with Yahoo, Bing, DuckDuckGo, all these different ones. So they're saying it's not just Google, it's just that's the one that most people prefer. So when you go into your iPhone, and you know this, Scott, and this also works with other devices too, you can go in and change your default search engine to be whatever it is you want. And some people, don't know why, but some people switch over from Google to Bing. I mean,
or Alta Vista,
weird. Alta Vista. When is the last time you used? I bet Alta Vista doesn't even use Alta Vista. I bet they use Google at this point too.
Back in the late 90s.
Let's see here. So anyway, I thought that was interesting that Google is on trial right now, and it's possible that their search engine practices could get them broken up. So the DOJ is expected to present its case over 4 weeks. I mean, this is serious. Then a coalition of attorneys, attorney generals, will present their case. So it's not just the U.S. Department of Justice that's suing Google. It's all the states, not all of them, but a lot of the states as well. This should be much bigger news. I'm not sure why it's not, but this is pretty huge stuff. I mean, what would happen to us if they broke Google up?
Yeah, that's a good question. What would breaking up Google? I just can't envision it, because Google is their search engine. They got a lot of other stuff they're going to try to monetize, but where they get the money is the search engine. So how do you break up a single entity like that? You got to
And the other thing is they may not even be looking to break them up. They may be just wanting to make the playing field more fair. So they might, sort of make them change their tactics. So they are, less the dominant search engine. But again, I think people are just going to use what works best. It really is the best.
And that's kind of what it comes down to is, and Microsoft had that same argument too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Microsoft, they said that in the 1990s. They can't come back and say the opposite today. Well, I guess they could, but it wouldn't hold water.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like for business, business runs on Windows.
For the most part, as far as the client-facing side, right? There's a lot of non-client-facing devices like, spam filters and content filters. And websites. Those are more run on Linux.
On Linux, yeah.
But
as far as the desktop, the laptop, artists may use Apple, although I'm not sure exactly why. The machines cost twice as much, but
I think it's habit. I think if they actually went to a Windows computer to see what it could do, they, might say, okay, there's really no difference. It's
Yeah.
just a different
But, and
interface, but hard to
I
say.
mean, there used to be. It used to be, Adobe Photoshop was Apple only. It
Sure,
was iOS was
sure.
on the Mac, and that was it. But
Yeah, yeah. No,
and
I totally agree with that.
yeah, and I would probably change. If I'm used to iPhones, so I'd get an iPhone. Samsung would probably be just great.
Yeah.
But I'm invested in the infrastructure for Apple.
It is a little bit jarring that first time you open up your phone after being on Apple for years and go, oh my gosh, where's my icons?
Yeah. This doesn't look right.
Yeah. An interesting new era in PCs is unfolding. What do you think I'm about to say?
Foldable screens.
There you go. Good job. The foldable PC era is unfolding. You got to make sure you have that L in there, otherwise you sound like a 4-year-old. They say foldable. Foldable from Ars Technica. 17-inch foldable OLED is arriving in October.
Huh.
Yeah. And it's going for 4.99 million won. How much do you think
which
that is in
is
dollars?
$25.
$3,700. $3,700. It's crazy because, there was a time when buying a laptop for $3,000 was not all that unusual.
No, it was not.
And it was
And now
when 3,000 meant a lot more than it does today, too.
Yeah, you can get a decent one for, well, I buy laptops and desktops for people that are, $500, $600, $700.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not doing graphics and high-end gaming, then yeah, that's plenty good.
It'll do what you need.
Sure, and then with the SSD drives, they're faster than ever. So
Oh, I know.
yeah. So LG is coming out with a 17-inch OLED, like I said, $3,700 cash. And so basically, you open this thing up, and you see, instead of a keyboard, you just see a big screen. So, let me see if I can get that up here for us on the screen. So I think it really is a beautiful, thing that they're doing here.
Yeah, if it's OLED, the colors are probably gorgeous.
There we go. See that?
I do not.
Oh, that's right. You don't have that. That's right, from your location, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it really is, amazing to look at. And of course, it is going to, it's going to cost you a little bit. So they launched the first foldable. I didn't even know this in 2020, but it probably wasn't very good, which is why nobody reported on it.
Yeah, let's not talk about this. Let's work on it more.
Exactly. Yeah. So they became the largest original equipment manufacturer, what we call OEM, to announce this foldable screen laptop. HP announced its first attempt, called the Spectre, earlier this month. I haven't seen what the cost is on that. So it's 17-inch, 9.4 millimeters or 0.37 inches thick. That's not too bad.
Yeah, that's pretty thin.
Yeah. It can be folded in half, so it shows up as a 12.2-inch laptop. So if you turn the bottom half into a keyboard, and you can turn it into a soft keyboard, software-based keyboard instead of a physical one, then it looks like a 12.2-inch laptop. So that's not very big, but if you wanted to open it up and just make it a big tablet, I mean, that would be impressive. Maybe 24-inch tablet, or I guess it's pretty impressive. So it is 1920 by 2560. That's greater than 4K, isn't it? Isn't 4K 2400?
20. I thought it was 2560.
Oh, it is 2560. Okay. So yeah, then it is a full 4K. Weighs 2.76 pounds, a little bit hefty, a little heavier than what you're going.
How many pounds?
2.9 pounds.
Oh, that's not bad. Well, 15.6 or a 17-inch regular laptop is still going to be 3 pounds.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't bought a laptop in a while. So yeah, this is a pretty good deal. I'm not seeing what the processor is or anything like the graphics or anything like that, but it is impressive. It looks like it's a it's not a matte screen. It's a glossy screen. So if you're in
Oh.
certain, yeah, if you're in certain lighting conditions, it's not going to be like I'm looking at it right now, and it's reflecting. The top half is reflecting at the bottom half. Or I'll show you. It's well, you can't see it, but the top half is reflecting back down to the bottom half,
Yeah.
which isn't very good.
Pretty and shiny.
Yeah, we kind of like to stay away from shiny things.
Yep.
So that is the new foldable laptop. Sony, I don't know if you have heard about this, but Sony's been taken over by a ransomware gang.
Oh.
Yeah. Now this happened when North Korea probably paid somebody. They said they did it themselves, but we all think that somebody they
Oh yeah, the subcontractors.
yeah. There's not a lot of internet traffic going on in North Korea.
No.
So they Sony has once again been taken over, but this time instead of by a North Korean gang, it's they're trying to sell the data that has been accessed. So there's this new kind of malware. I mentioned it in an article I wrote on LinkedIn this week called the snatchware. So what snatchware is when you go in and you do what these guys did to Sony, and you break into their network, instead of just encrypting their data, you grab their data. You might encrypt it too, but you grab the data before it's encrypted, and then you go sell it to somebody else. So even though they pay you the ransom, you take the money and you go, okay, I deleted it after, of course I sold it to somebody, and then they go and do the same thing. They're going, hey, I just got all this data, that was sold to me. Now I'm going to, sell it to you too. So it could be sold many, many times. They may have to pay the ransom multiple times before, they finally have given up and the data is not released, or they release the data anyway. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think I heard something about that a lot of the actors were finding out what the higher ups really thought of them.
Yes. Yeah, we did report on that when that happened years ago to Sony, and that was quite eye-opening. That is true. So the hackers say they're not going to ransom the data, but they will.
Going to give it to the highest bidder. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. They're not ransoming it to Sony in this particular case. They're just out to sell it. That is true. Yeah. So ransom demands in general run anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 or more. I've seen some in the millions too. So that can happen. Right now, ransomware hackers are making as much money as the entire Russian economy. I don't know if that's saying not very much for ransomware or not very much for Russia, but
Or both.
It's still over $1 trillion. That is hard to believe that people are losing that much. And here's the reason why. This was a planned segue, Scott. So, CISOs, which is the security officer of any company, are struggling to get their cybersecurity budgets passed. So there's been years of rapid growth. This is according to CSO Online. Years of rapid growth, cybersecurity spending is actually starting to taper among enterprises. A 65% fall in budget growth as global instability and inflationary pressures start to pinch. So what these companies are saying is that, hey, things are a little bit tighter. So rather than not buy that new jet I was going to get, I'm just going to lower the amount of cybersecurity we have in our company.
Well, they're going to start ratcheting it down until something happens, because it's like part of the reason nothing's happened and it looks like they're just pouring money down the drain is that it's taking care of the problem.
Right. It's called the scream test, Scott. Have you heard of the scream test? We've done the scream test before. It's where you shut something down because you don't know what it is, and then you wait for somebody to scream.
Who uses a server? Well, let's find out.
Let's find out. That was installed by the sysadmin from 3 times ago, over 10 years ago, and we don't know what it's for or who's it for. But then somebody eventually does scream. That is true, most of the time. But if they don't, then you can safely keep it, shut down. So. The budget increases for security was 6% in the 2022-2023. So they haven't gone down as much as they're just not increasing as quickly. 17% in the year before and 16% in the year before that. So I don't see this as an area to be overly concerned today, but 6% is not that much above what the inflation is, at least in the U.S. So
Right.
you're pretty much keeping even. You're not, you're not implementing anything new. Well, I guarantee you that the hackers are implementing new things
Hmm.
all the time.
Yeah, there's new things that you're fighting against daily.
Yeah, especially when they're state sponsored, when China and Russia's governments are, giving them the resources they need to do this. So, one of the best ways, I don't know if you know this, Scott, but one of the best ways to keep from being infected by a Russian virus is to go into your computer settings and install the Russian language, because the hackers have a deal with Putin. Putin said you can install your malware on any computer you want except Russian ones. So what it does, the hackers look for the Russian language to see if it's installed on the computer. And if it is, then they won't infect it. That's a little tip for those of you out there working in cybersecurity. And you don't have to make it your language, your dominant
It
language.
has to be installed.
It just has to be installed, and it's super simple. You just go into the control
Add
panel
a
settings, languages,
Yeah.
hit Russian, install. 2 minutes later, you're now protected from every Russian malware out there that follows what Putin told them to do.
Yeah, install Italian too, so you're protected from Italian hackers.
I don't know about that. All I know is the one about the Russian one.
Okay.
And I don't know about the China one either, because, the Chinese get hit by a lot of malware too.
They do.
Yeah. So it's not the same in China as it is in Russia, even though they're both considered, not the greatest of governments.
They're not good friends.
Not good friends, no. Not to the U.S. They're good friends to each other, though.
They've been getting a little cozier lately, especially
yeah.
since Russia's been having so many problems, and in their war that's going to be over in 3 days.
They've been having sleepovers,
Yep.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is one of those things where I'm not as concerned about it today, that you've only kept up with inflation for the most part, but by next year you better be cranking up that cybersecurity budget again, because you're out of business when these kinds of things happen. What can Sony even do right now? Well, when they encrypt the data, then they're really stuck. But that's not what's happening now. Sony's like, okay, I don't really know what's out there at this point. They might have to go buy their own data just to see what's being released. I don't know. The IRS needs to improve their cybersecurity log management. This is according to the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration from Accounting Today. So the IRS apparently is having some cybersecurity issues. They've been tragically underfunded since Trump got into office, because he didn't want them looking into his taxes.
Exactly.
So then Biden went ahead and said, hey, you know what? Here, have 80 billion, make things better. So now they're
And the Republicans really fought against that too.
Oh,
They
yeah.
didn't want, the Congress people didn't want their taxes looked at.
Exactly. So what that's doing is creating new groups that are going after specific, types of tax dodgers. And so one of the things that they need to make better is their cybersecurity, because the Treasury inspector is saying, hey, we're about to be hacked. So they have this audit log summary report from September. The IRS could not provide 7 out of 13 that should have been there. So they couldn't even find their own stuff, basically, is what this is saying. So the log files tell you who's been in the system and what they've been doing. That's why this is important. Because if hackers have been in there, there should be logs of it. If people who shouldn't, who work for the government who shouldn't be in there, also there's going to be logs. Now you can go and try to delete the logs, but the logs, when they're created, they're copied off to another place that has different usernames and passwords. So you're not going to be able to go in and delete the log if they set it up correctly, which I'm hoping that there it is. I did say if, didn't I?
Yep.
Well, we won't know until we know.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, a lot of these huge hacks have happened because people haven't maintained their software, haven't maintained their hardware.
That's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
SQL servers facing the internet, and if they had just kept up on patches that were released, 9 months ago, they'd be fine.
They would be.
No, but they got hacked.
They would be. You're absolutely right.
because they probably cut funding for their CISO.
Yeah, exactly. And finally today, Scott, we have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, finalizes guidance on cybersecurity in use of medical devices. Whoa. This is crazy because you and I have talked about not adding internet capability for utilities because it's the first thing that's going to go in a cyber war. China and Russia are going to try to shut down our water, electricity, or make it unusable and
back up our sewers.
Yeah, exactly, which has already happened to more than one town. And we talked about, not making, devices like refrigerators and televisions and things like that. Also, I think the Sony hack, I'd have to read up on that again, but I think the Sony hack happened due to an Internet of Things device. They got in through a music player or something like that. And then from there, they bounced and increased their administrator capability.
These manufacturers are putting Linux in these machines, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's the cheapest version they could get.
Right.
And it can't be upgraded. And security changes daily, weekly.
Yeah.
And these things can't, they can't use WPA3. They can only use maybe even web.
Oh, no. Don't say
so
that.
It's like,
that's a dirty word.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they're installing things that can't be maintained, can't be upgraded, and they can be out of date so quickly.
Oh, I agree. So they're starting to make things that, devices that are now capable of being controlled by phones, apps on phones or laptops, or Windows operating systems, Macs, whatever. We've already seen it with type 1 diabetes. So you've got devices that you can, scan over the device that's been implanted, and then it sends you data about your blood sugar. Now, just imagine the president of the United States has a medical condition. He needs to go in and get a pacemaker in. Guess what? You now want to allow Russia to control that pacemaker?
Yep, that's a problem.
That's what you're doing. How many people are going to die, without us really realizing what the reason was before we figure out, that this is not a good thing. So the FDA, what's that?
I was going to say another one of those things. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. So the FDA is saying, okay, we need to have some cybersecurity built into these medical devices before you start implanting them, because this is going to be a big problem. And so my guess is unless they make a law, and even if they do, but unless they make a law, I don't see this happening. I mean, it's just the manufacturers are going to go, oh, I got to make this. I got to be $5 cheaper than the next guy.
That's the problem. Everyone's just counting pennies, and it'll drive down the price. And well, we don't really have to do security to that level. We'll just do the minimum.
Do you ever see a stoplight in the middle of nowhere because, and you're like, why did the stoplight get in there? And you realize it's because somebody got hit and died, there. Same kind of thing. No one is going to do anything about this until people start dying from it. And then they're going to, pass some laws and make some changes and do some upgrades and all that kind of stuff.
Well, a lot of companies don't pay any attention to cybersecurity until something happens.
Exactly. So it's going to be one of those things where not today.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's been another fun and exciting Alltech radio show this week, Scott. We learned a lot about Microsoft Copilot and a lot of other interesting things about cybersecurity. So stay tuned for our next Alltech radio podcast when we get together again next week.